Hey guys, welcome to the Skolo Online YouTube channel, the channel that is all about learning, okay? In this channel, we make a lot of videos on web development, WordPress design, e-commerce development, Python development, and a whole lot more. We will take you through the process of everything we're teaching you from beginning to end, step by step, so that you can follow along and build as we build, all right? If you're new to this channel, please make sure that you hit the subscribe button. The subscribe button is going to be red right underneath the video that you're watching, and like this video and comment on these videos. Let us know what works for you, what doesn't work for you, so that we can create content that is more relevant to what you guys want to watch, okay? Also, underneath the video that you're watching, there is that show more button underneath the description. Please open it up and have a look at some of the links that we've created for you. Every time that we make a video, we will add all the useful links underneath it. So if you hear me saying in the video that I'm going to link it in the description below, that's where you'll find the link in the description underneath the video, all right, for more information to help you learn along, all right? And a lot of the videos that we make, also we will create timestamps because our videos are long. You don't have to watch the entire video. You can go through these timestamps and read which part of the video you are interested in watching. Click on the timestamp and it will fast forward you to that part of the video, and you only have to watch that, all right? And we also have linked in the description below our social media channels, so feel free to follow us on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram. We've got our website right there, and if you want to get in touch with us, my email address is also available in the description below. So let's start learning. We're going to get started with the video series on creating a customer relationship management platform. Now, I must stress that building a customer relationship management platform is by no means a simple task, or by no means anything you're going to learn on YouTube, but I'm going to give you enough basics that you can get started, at least building something that you can use inside of a small company, or you can create for small clients that they can use internally, because the principles are not complicated. It's the application of that principle that's complicated. But let me not talk too much. Let's get started. Now, the sort of architecture that we're going to get started with is going to be a very simplistic one, because I want you to be able to code along and follow with me. So we're not going to do complicated architecture and complicated tools. I'm going to show you the simplest way to do this, and then you can now expand on that, what I've taught you, and do more complex things for better security. Now, simply, the architecture that we're going to do is going to involve, obviously, you need a database. To build any sort of customer relationship management, you're going to need a database. You're going to need, on top of a database, you're going to need a server. And then you're going to need what we call a front end, which is going to be the client side where people can react with your application. Your database is where we're going to store all the information that we're going to use. The client information, documents, whatever it is that our customer relationship management platform needs, we're going to store this in a database. The server is going to do all the computing work that we need for the CRM. Therefore, all the logic, all the internal procedures and systems are going to be captured and coded within the server. And finally, the client side will be the client-facing front end, your HTML website, where people are going to go log in, get started using their CRM. These main building blocks are important to differentiate when you get started with the web application project, because you need to decide what sort of architecture you want to use for your project. Now, for a database, there's a lot of options. Database, you can use one of the simplest, depending on your skills, obviously. So you have your, I like to work a lot with the Rethink, because it's really simple to use, and it's, you don't have to code a lot of, you don't have to code and specify what data set goes where. It's really very simple to use and specify. You can use a Firebase, which is free. And if you're going to be building a small application, you can use Firebase for this. You can use something like Django, which is going to have sort of a built-in database server and client end, which is probably one of the best ways to approach this type of a project. But it's going to be complicated for a lot of people to follow, so I'm not going to use Django. You can use MongoDB. You can use basically any kind of database that you want. This depends also on your skill level and your ability to code that database. But for real simplicity, because I want to make this simple enough that you're going to be able to follow along even from home, I'm going to use Airtable. So we are going to be using the Airtable and the Airtable API to access the database, because Airtable allows you very good visualization from the Airtable side. And a lot of clients I come across these days, for some reason, want to work with Airtable because it allows them the flexibility to feel like they can see their data some way. Whereas when it's sitting in some MongoDB, you just have to trust your developer what they're telling you. But in Airtable, you can literally see the data, and clients are preferring to use it and they're wanting to move more and more into it. I would highly recommend, if you're a new developer, you start learning coding Airtable and using it. However, I must mention this earlier on because I've had a couple of months working with Airtable now. And I can tell you that as simple as it is, and the clients prefer it on the other side, it's a developer's worst nightmare because it's not built to be a application backend. It's not designed to be an application backend. It's not designed to be an application database, even though it has the ability to do that, and they've thoroughly improved their API to be able to allow you to do that. It's not designed for that. When you query information of the database, it's really difficult, and the database is very, very slow for an application backend. The second problem is it's not linked. The information in the database is linked you can link tables, and I'll show you how to do that on the database itself. But when you now manage, let's say you are deleting a record that was linked to another record, those links do not follow through, which make it more complicated. Over time, your application is going to be a mess, right? Now, I will show you how to do this with Airtable because it's the simplest version. But if you were doing a real CRM, you would not use Airtable, okay? The server side, this can be anything. And this also depends on your preferences. It depends on what you're good at coding. You can use a JavaScript type server. You can use any type of coding language. But in this channel, we are Python fanatics, and we are going to be using a Python server. And again, we could also use Django because Django is really amazing. And if we use Django, we would then get rid of Airtable and just use the Django database system and front end, and everything would be simple, spanky. But again, Django is complicated for a lot of people to understand. Django is really, in my opinion, the Mercedes-Benz of web applications. Not everybody knows how to do it. It's really very heavy. It's got a bit of a learning curve. But honestly, in my opinion, it's the best web app development platform that exists right now in the world. But I'm not going to use it today. I will use Flask because Flask is much simpler to employ. Flask is much simpler to get started with. It's very lightweight. We're just going to put some URLs in there and we're going to get started. And then on the client side, of course, here we're going to be going with HTML and CSS. Not that we have any options, but of course, the reason why I have it this way is you could do this on a mobile application, and then you could use a mobile front end. You could have this on, an Android. You could use the front end, can be anything. And by the way, this could be on Android and the database still on Airtable. This could be on the web and the database on. So these servers, you can interchange them, by the way. The reason why I've drawn them as specific blocks is when you go into app architecture design, you can choose which one you want depending on what you're trying to achieve. Now, if your client in future says to you, yeah, please build this for us. Later on, we'll do a a mobile application for this. Then you might not want to use Django because Django is going to be very hard to try and incorporate that into a mobile application in the future. If somebody says that to me as a client from the beginning, I'll think, okay, it's better for me to separate these things because in future, if then you want to be able to employ and use this on a mobile application and build a mobile front end, it will be easier for me to just integrate it to the server and the database if they are sitting separately. If later on, so it depends really on your intentions, how you go around designing this app architecture that you want to use for your project. But we are going to use Airtable, Flask, and HTML for our project. Then the next part of the planning, and this time I'm going very quickly through the planning. The next part of the planning is your data architecture. So when it comes to CRM, CRM is probably the most complex data architecture I've come across, second to blockchain development, right? Because they are so, it's not complicated in the sense that it's hard to understand. It's complicated in the sense that there are just too many moving parts that you have to keep in mind at the same time. When you're designing a customer relationship platform, you have to understand two main, I call them tracks, two main tracks of your app development. The first track is your content. So you need a content management system, okay? A CMS. And the content is going to be your tables that go into your application, for example. So within a CRM, you might want a table for leads, you might want a table for clients, you might want a table for projects and accounts, and any other table that is necessary for your project. But you also need to understand that the tables are connected and they are linked. So for example, and they also have a starting point and an end point, and they flow from one to the other. So you might start with a lead, and a client comes in and you get a lead. And that lead, over time, when it develops, it's going to become either a client or it's going to be a drop lead. At this point, I'm assuming you have the basic of understanding of what is a CRM. I'm not going into the definition of what is a CRM. I'm not teaching you what is a CRM. I'm teaching you how to build a platform for a CRM. So at this point, you should understand this terminology around what is a lead and what is a client. When I'm talking about a lead table, you should know what I'm talking about, because I'm assuming you're trying to build a CRM, you just don't know how, but you know what a CRM is, okay? Then the lead would develop into a client, or it would develop into something else. It would fall off, right? And then the client would develop into a project, which would also have an account. So there is linkages between the table. So when you have a project created within your CRM, you have to then be able to have a relationship between that project and the client that caused that project, and the account that is related to that project, and the lead that led to that project. So the tables are connected. They are not standalone tables. And these are the tables within your content track. I call this the content track. This is the CMS. This is the content that I need to manage in this application. Over and above managing this content, I need then to manage the analytics of this content. The main reason we build CRMs is to understand how many leads ended up as projects, how many leads fell away, how many leads became clients. What caused the leads to become client? Where did the leads come from? What was the source of the lead? That's another content ahead of this one that I omitted just to simplify this. Where did the lead come from? Did this lead come from social media, or was it a referral, or was it something else? But let's say we start with where a lead exists. Within our application, we have to be able to show to the client or whoever it is we are building the CRM for some sort of analytics of how well they're doing as a business. You know, how many accounts do they have this month? How much have they billed this month? How much billing has been paid? How much has not been paid? How many projects are billed? What is the billing turnover rate, whatever, you know? So all of these tables have some layer of analytics that encompasses all of them that we also have to incorporate. So this is what I call the content track. Parallel to the content track, you have to build a resources track. A resources track is a track that supports the content, and it works in parallel, and I'll explain to you what I mean. Within the content, we have the users of the organization. So let's say this whole big block is an organization, and this organization has leads, clients, projects, and accounts. All of these are connected to actual users. Your users could be your sales team, the people that are bringing in the leads. Your users could be your project managers, all right, or your project members. Okay, people that are working on the project. Who's the lead on the project? Who's the manager on the project? Who is the sales people who are bringing in the leads? All right, who are the projects managing the clients? And over and above that, you have documents as resources. Every time you have a client interaction or a client meeting, maybe you're going to produce a minute of meeting, or a document that describes how that meeting happened, what information you collected, so that you can store it for future. So all these documents are supporting the content, the leads. You're going to keep documents. Perhaps you're going to keep the CVs of the people, their LinkedIn profiles, their social media profiles, whatever it is. There's going to be some sort of documentation involved managing this content. So you have to store that document somewhere. All right. And then the notes. Okay. Notes can be a simple string or a paragraph or a whole document in itself, but I like to separate them. Right. You can go into a whole lot of things. Tasks. There are so many things, tasks that help manage the projects. When you create project tasks, these are all resources that support the content. So you need to separate when you're building a platform like this, what falls into your resources track, what falls into your content track. What is your content? What is your resources? Meetings. Every time you have a meeting is a resource. Are you going to be able to record that meeting and connect it and associate it with any of the contents in here? And the reason why we build CRMs is so that we can manage information, and that information is in one place, easily accessible, that if I open my dashboard, I can immediately see all the important metrics looking at me. But also, if I click on a project, for example, I can see the content that project is related to, but I can also see the resources that is associated with that project. By resources, I mean the people working on the project, the documents for that project, the notes for that project, the meetings for that project. It's all in one place. So all of these are resources which support your content. So within your content, you have to manage analytics. Within your resources, you have to manage access. You have to manage version control. Okay, these are very, very important things. Access, I mean, you have to manage, if this is project X, who's a project manager that can see project X? Who is the team members that can see project X? Out of the team members, who has the rights to edit project X? Who has the right to only view project X? All right? Within project Y, so you don't want a project manager from project X being able to see the project details for project Y. You don't want a team member in project Y to edit project information for project X. You understand? So that's what I mean by managing access. You have to manage who has access to what within your CRM. Then you have to manage versions. If we had a meeting and then we updated a project report, you have to manage the versions. We had a project report, version X, version Y, revision 1, revision 2, revision 3 was edited by this person, revision 1 was edited by that person. There's a lot that goes into this. I'm saying this on a very, very high level. We won't cover all of this in a YouTube video tutorial. It's not possible. If I had to build a whole CRM that included all of this, it would take me a couple of months, and working full-time with a couple of developers, experienced developers full-time. I'm explaining this to you so that you watching this can understand what goes into it. But then I will then overly simplify this and build a workable, overly simplistic version of a CRM, which you should be able to, as a small business, as a startup, as a small developer who's learning how to do this thing, build for yourself or for your business, or build and sell to other people. But more importantly, in the process of you building that, you will be learning very, 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 very useful skills. And that's the purpose of this channel, is to teach you very, very useful skills. You will have learned some useful skills, even though I don't think we're going to develop a CRM to this extent. Now, to get started, let us work on some of the tables that we're going to need. All right, so we're going to start on this track. I would even start with leads. Let's start with the leads table. So let's start at the top so that we can show quickly how to create the different tables and how the tables are going to lead from one to the next. Okay. So in this tutorial, I don't want it to be too long. We're going to start very quickly by developing a table that is called leads. And then we will show you then how to link that table into the front end server and HTML, CSS, so that at least you can view the database information. And we'll leave it there, and then we'll continue next week by building the other stuff. And we'll build on this tutorial week by week. We keep adding to it, and hopefully by the end of this series, we will have a reasonably working, but overly simplified CRM tool that you can use for a small business. To start building our database, head on over to Airtable, airtable.com. Click to create a new account if you don't have one already. If you are not sure how to do that, we do have a video on this channel that we did a couple of weeks back where we showed you how to get started with Airtable and specifically the pricing involved with Airtable. You can go and have a look at that video. But in summary, basically, Airtable is free to use when you are a small startup. And when you start getting bigger and requiring more and more records, they will start charging you for their service. But for the purposes of this tutorial, you should be able to create a free base on, a table, a base on the free package without paying for Airtable. So once you're logged in and you've created an account and you're sitting on your landing page for Airtable, you can just click on add a base over there. And let us just start from scratch. We're going to start with a completely empty base. And over here, you can pick a color that you like for your base. I think I will go with the black or the gray. Green? No, black, gray. That's okay. And you can give your base a name. So we are going to call it CRM. And click enter. And we are on our CRM base. You will see over here, it already has 3 rows created for you. So just go ahead and delete those rows so that you have nothing there. And go ahead and delete all the columns as well. Delete all the fields so that you have nothing left. And you only have one. You can't delete this one. It's the index row. And over here on Airtable, just quick navigation, you can add another table over there, or you can rename this table. So this table, I don't like to call my table table 1. Let's see if I can rename it. And we're going to start with the team table. The team table is going to represent the users of our CRM, because everything, remember what I showed you earlier on, that everything on the CRM is connected to a resource. Whenever you build a table or a content, you have to always have resources that are associated with that table. So it's going to be easier for us to start with a users table so that we can define the users of our CRM. And our users are going to be the employees of our organization. Let us say they have a first name and a last name. It's always tempting to start by putting in the first name over there or the full names or the surname, but that's not good practice for designing databases. The best practice for designing databases is to have that as a unique field. In the background, Airtable does create unique identifiers, IDs anyway, but for your own records, you will see later on, this is going to be useful that you have it. So especially if you're going to have people that have multiple first names, you actually want to create some unique identifier on the string side that you're going to use to filter through the table later on in the future. So I'm going to call this team ID. And it's going to be a simple string that I'm going to enter. And I'll determine how I determine that string. And then we can put in all the other things that we generally need. I will just say first name. And again, you'll find with Airtable, it's best. This is also good practice. I will tell you from the beginning, it's best not to do this when you're creating a table for a row. It is best to always have no spaces between your row names, because later on when you're doing your API calls and you're trying to call on a table a name or a table column, this is going to complicate things for you, even when you're trying to look through things because of the space in between and all of that. Trust me on this one. Try to avoid spaces in between your column names if possible. If you need to have 2 words like first name, rather have it with the capitalized so that you can differentiate that this was 2 words actually. But for data management purposes, try not to have spaces. And once you create a column, you can choose what kind of data goes into this column. So for now, we're just going to go with string data. And I will also enter a last name. Assume a team member has a first name and a last name. And we're going to also say that a team member has a job title. This is very, very important so that we can identify their position in the organization when they are responsible for projects and what their responsibilities are. And the team member perhaps has an email address. And for email address, we could always choose email. I think they do have an email data type over here. Okay. But I will tell you why I'm going to use a string anyway. Because when you select a different data type over here, the data types always become restrictive when you're trying to enter data into the database, and you might sometimes forget you've selected a number data type, and then your form gives you a string, and then your data doesn't enter the Airtable. I've said trying to troubleshoot this for like a couple of hours at a time, and then I learned it was the data type. So you will manage these yourself on the application side, because if you remember, you're going to have a server and you're going to have a database and you're going to have the front end. So of course you don't want anybody to enter an email that's not an actual email address, but I would rather manage this on the application server side than on the database side, so that the database does not restrict or sometimes block me entering information into the database if I've restricted it. So I'm going to continue to leave it as a single line text, even though I know it's an email, and I'll manage it from the application side to make sure that only email data types are entered. There's easy ways to do this from the form side, and even on the server side with Python to manage that and leave the database free. And then I will enter perhaps a phone number as well. And for the phone number, I'm also going to leave it as a string single line text. And then the only other thing I want to put in here is their profile image, so that we can see what they look like. The profile image associated with this person. Okay, so let's enter some dummy data. Let me enter some quick dummy data, and then we're going to continue just now. I've created 5 different rows, instances of our data based on the table. The table would be similar to any database table within a database. So imagine this whole CRM space that we've created is a database, and within this space we have multiple tables that we can add. So you add them manually. Our first table is called team, and within this team we've added columns, and these columns are the sort of the types of data or the variables that we will be introducing into our table. And you can specify as you're adding a column what kind of data that you want to include over here. They have everything from single line text, checkbox data. So most databases will give you this opportunity to select the data type, even a button if you want. And once you've done that, then these are all the columns. They're the variables. They are the data types that we're entering into our database. And then the rows are the data instances, or an instance of that data set. And so I've entered 5 different rows, 5 different instances of a team member. And the first one, Aegon Targaryen, and I've entered all the way up to 5 different people, and I've given them their titles, their email addresses, phone numbers, and I've added profile images for all of them. So our team table is complete. Let us now create a new table that we're going to call lead. This is now where the plot thickens and it gets interesting. We really created this team table so that we would be able to better, support the lead table. In fact, once I've done this, I can even do that and have the team come after the lead. But maybe we'll do that later on. And as usual, just delete all the empty rows that are there. It's just a habit, and you will be grateful you do it all the time, because it messes up your API calls. Sometimes your code crashes, or not crashes, but like has errors with empty rows, because then the API brings back that row anyway, but it brings it back empty, which means that the specific variables are not there, and then your code will throw an error on the other side, and then it's an unnecessary error, because just remove the empty rows. Now what we'll do is, for this one, we need to think about it. When you're having a lead in an organization, a lead is like a potential opportunity for business. You've met somebody who is a potential client that you can do business with. It's very important to then be able to save that person's information in a place where you can refer to it at a later stage, but also other team members can access that information. If they want to help you along, if you're on leave, for example, and your lead needs to be followed up on, they can go to the CRM and get that information, read everything you've written about the person so they can follow up on them. So there's many reasons why you want to record lead, and it's best practice in a lot of organizations today. all the way from corporate. All the big corporate companies do this, and they have very, very expensive CRM tools like Salesforce, and that charge them an arm and a leg. And as a small business, perhaps you can't afford Salesforce. What all the things that Salesforce does is easily replicable in even a simple database like Airtable. You just have to understand the core principles and what the Salesforce is actually doing. What is the main important data that you need to save, and how are you going to be able to access it? If you can manage these two things, you can create a CRM and not have to pay a lot of money, because all you need to understand is your content. What kind of content do I need to keep? How am I going to manage the analytics of that content? And who are the resources that work with that content? And how can I manage all of that, manage access, manage version? That's it. This is a high level overview of what you need to do here. Now, as usual, I will start with calling this ID. So I'm going to call this lead ID. So I'm going to first of all rename it to lead ID. Right, and then let's enter a value for this. I think I had these. Let me generate new UUID. This is a very useful website, by the way. If you go to UUIDgenerator.net, I use this a lot if I'm not generating the UUID inside of my Python code, and I'm doing this manually, like with Airtable, for example. You just go over here, UUIDgenerator.net, and you can like generate unique IDs, and you get different types. So they have UUID1 and UUID4, which is the one most people use. And you can copy the whole UUID or parts of it, depending on what you want. So for this one, I'll copy just that one part, and I will enter the lead ID to be that. I just need a unique string to identify that lead. The next thing that I'm going to enter over here is going to be the name of that person. So again, we will have first name as a single line text, right? And then we will have last name as a single line text. This is the name of the lead that you've just received. Let's say you've met somebody at a meeting, at a conference. It's their name, their first name and their last name. You might want to, at this point, write a description perhaps, because remember, you're recording information. After you have 100 leads, you might not remember what that lead was about. So you might want to describe that person for even other sales people to be able to follow up on your lead later on, just to note what was that lead about. So for this one, I will use long text instead of a single line text, because it's like a paragraph. So long text is similar to if you're coding in another database, it would be like a paragraph, as opposed to a single line text, which is just like a string. Right? So you can enter more characters in a long text than you can do in a single line text. So you might want to describe the description. So the description might be, so let's put in some names here. Let's see. Let's say our lead was Jamie Lannister, right? And the description is, potential to do business within our sword selling division. Jamie might be interested in placing our custom and bulk orders for our new reinforced steel swords. Whatever. It's just put in what the description is all about. Then after that, what else do you want to record for this person? Perhaps a phone number. All right. Perhaps we also want to record their email address if we have it. Right. Their phone number. Let's put something there quickly. Their email address. Let's say it's Jamie at westeros.com. All right, so let's move this on and have create more space over there. What else do we want to record for this team member? We might want to record the company, okay? The company that they're working for, okay? So the company name that they that employs them, so that you can later on somebody can like search that company, or maybe you can, if Jamie stops working at that company, for example, at a later stage, somebody else works there, but you had been building relationships with Jamie over time. If you know the company, you can then find out from the company who's the next person that took over from Jamie. So let's say this company was called what would we, Lannister Group. Okay, let's say that's the name of the company, and his name was, and here we're gonna put in the job description. This is his job description. What's his title? You can also call this title. It's up to you how you wanna rename this. So for this job description, I'm going to say Jamie Lannister was the operations lead. All right. So there's a lot of things we're going to put in here. So maybe let's say we also want to get their contact information. So we're going to put in here, you might want to put in the email address. I think we've already done that. So let's put in like his LinkedIn profile. Right. Let's put in, so I'm not going to do all the social media links, but within a proper CRM, you might want, nowadays, it's very, very important because social media is becoming more and more acute. And then people will ask me, like, I get clients, but like, where are we going to get their social media links? Duh. You can Google Jamie Lannister and you will find most of the top search items that come up when you Google a person is their social media links, because they are already SEO optimized. So you must search for that person. They don't have to give you the social media links. You can find it yourself. So this is where you hire a sales intern or a sales employee to gather all this information. The more complete your CRM is, the more successful you're going to become at chasing down these leads, or at least keeping track of your data. Because one of the most useful purposes of a CRM is not just to record the information. One of the most useful things of a CRM, and why big organizations invest millions into CRMs, is not to keep track of the resources. It's to manage analytics. Because over time, when you have 100 leads, you've worked for a year and a half, and you've followed 100 leads. Following leads is expensive. Following leads costs you money. And you want to know what leads became projects. And by analyzing some of these analytics and all of these data sets, trust me, you're going to start to pull out trends. And then you're going to learn, actually, a lot of leads that we get from this source turn into projects, and these type of leads don't turn into projects. Or it takes on average 6 months to turn a lead into a project. So the analytics are going to give you a whole lot of insights that will help you focus better as an organization, so that you know where to now put in more of your efforts in the future. So salespeople will not want to do this because it's more work for them to record everything. But as an organizational lead, you will want to do this for your own analytics at the end of the day. So let's continue. LinkedIn profile, find all the social media, whatever the information, you add it on there, and you continue. Another thing that you want to know also is their address. So for this, I'm just going to put a town, and I'm going to leave it like that. And for town here, I'm going to say they are from Sandton. And for LinkedIn profile there, I'm just going to put in https linkedin.com. In reality, you'll put in the proper LinkedIn profile, won't you? Then after that, we're going to go into the budget. This is now where you want to now track how much money you're spending on the client. So we will have usually within sales departments, and in my corporate gig many moons ago, when I was still working for other people, I spent a stint in sales department, and this is the case for a lot of big organizations. There is a budget for sales, because organizations understand that we have to spend money in sales. And within that budget, you can split it between your leads so that you know how much money you're supposed to spend on a specific person. So you will have in here the budget, available amount of money that you can spend on this person. And this can now be a number, right? It does not have to be in fact, it can be like Can it be a currency? Can you put currency in here? Yes. You can put a currency and you can have the currency symbol, which is ZAR. So we can know how much ZARs are in here. And for that, we're just going to say the budget for this person is, let's say, 500 rands. But actually, I'm going to change this from currency back to string. And this is for the same reason why the email is also a string, because I don't want this to become a limitation later on when I am trying to convert this to a string and then just put it 500 like that. It still works, but you'll know on the other application side, you'll manage it, making sure that it's a currency the way you want it. So I'm going to leave it as a string, and then after that, I will then put in the value. So we call this lead value. Okay, I want to put lead value right next to lead budget. So maybe let me rename this to lead budget. Okay. And lead value. Lead budget is how much we're going to spend on this lead to try and push it and pursue it. Lead value is how much we think they will be worth. And this is a guess at this point. It is a wild guess, but based on their company and your previous projects, if you're a proper sales person or project manager, you can make a pretty calculated, informed guess at this stage. So let's say I think if I win this person, this project maybe is going to be worth 100,000 rand. And after that, you're going to put in the lead source. This is now one of the most important things when it comes to lead, is that you need to understand the lead source. The lead source is, where did this lead come from? The lead source is, was this a referral? Did you meet this person at a conference? Where did you meet this person? Because later on, when you want to analyze the kind of leads that became successful, it will be useful for you to have had this field, the lead source, because you'll be able to then say, oh, okay, so a lot of the leads that come from social media don't go anywhere, and a lot of the leads that come from conferences work out well. A lot of the leads that come from Google search work out well. This is why a lot of the times when you log into a website, you've seen this, you log into a website and then they ask you, how do you hear about us? And you're like, what the hell? Why do they want to know where I heard about them? It's for this, because in the background, they've got a CRM that they are tracking the lead source, and they want to know for the analytics later on, how did you hear about their company? All right. That's why you have this. All the big companies are doing this. The lead source is not going to be a string. It's going to be what we call a customized field type. It's going to be a multiple select or a single select. All right. Well, actually, I don't want a multiple select. I want a single select, because you should be able to only select one item at a time. Single select. Yeah, it's a single select. And then for single select, we're going to add an option. The first one is, perhaps they heard about us from Google search. Perhaps they heard about us from Facebook. Perhaps this was a referral from a friend. Actually, let's say friend, because if you say referral, they might not understand what you're talking about on the other side. How do they hear about us? There's many options, and I'll let you think about it. For now, I'll leave it as Google, Facebook, friend. Presentation that we did. Let's leave that. Let's have only 3 and save. But you will, in your own time, find a lot of this. So here I'm gonna pick friend and say that Jamie heard about us from a friend. All right. Then the other thing that you also want to be able to specify at this point is the status of the lead. The status of the lead is how far is the lead? Where's the lead right now? So the status as well is going to be a single select, right? And within here, we're going to say, let's say the lead, it's active. This is the most obvious status. Okay, active. All right. We converted the lead. All right. We dropped the lead. All right, the lead is on ice. Think about all the different options you wanna include over here. It's up to you and your organization, and it depends also on the process flow, what generally happens. But these ones are the important ones. You want to know, is it active? Is it you can even have stages at this point where you start, depending on your workflow, perhaps you have just initiated and then stage one approved or budget approved, or then you have, okay, budget spent, you could play with this a lot to even manage the different workflows in your organization and how your organization is designed. But this specific one, I'm just going to really simplify this and say a lead is either active, means we're actively pursuing it, or we have converted it, which means it's done. This person is now a client of ours, or we dropped it. Over time, we decided, okay, we're not going to pursue this anymore. Or I leave ICE to be like, all right, we pursued them, but we thought, okay, like the client said, okay, they're waiting for this, COVID is happening, and we will do this, we will review them again next year or something like that. So for this, I will leave only those 4 options. And this one, the lead that I just created now for our Jamie Lannister, I'm going to leave as active so that we know that we're actively working on this. And later on in your analytics, you will see how this comes into play and really makes things interesting. Now, the other thing that you want to put in here as well is your industry of operation. Your industry, the industry of the lead. Where does the lead come from? In a business like mine, for example, where I am a developer and I build applications for a lot of people, you find that I can work with a beauty salon business to build them an e-commerce store, as much as I can work with a corporate client who wants a database built for them. And a corporate client could be from any industry, right? So I might want to be able to classify my clients from size and say the size of the organization, so that I know, okay, these ones are maybe I must prioritize more because I'm probably going to get more money from them because they're a big organization. And then the industry as well. A database, I could be building it for somebody who's in banking as much as I can be building for somebody who's in the beauty business. So for me, when it comes to classifying the type of business, I need two classifications: the company size and the industry. But depending on your business, you might find that actually for my business, I am supplying gas, for example, and I can only supply gas to the same gas industry that I'm in. So I don't need to know what industry it is inside of my CRM, because everyone that's buying from me is going to be from the oil and gas industry. Then I don't supply to small suppliers because I'm a big supplier. I'm a SASO. So I can only supply to like your ESCOMs and things like that. Therefore, I don't even need to specify the industry. I don't need to specify the size because I am a bulk supplier. I can only supply to big businesses. Therefore, this depends on your company. It might not be a necessary requirement for you to have this in your CRM, but I will, because for me, I need to know the industry type. So here, let's enter some options. So for industry, let's customize this and enter some options in here. So let's say the industry, let's say banking is an industry, mining is an industry, manufacturing, and you can go on and on and on. I'm not going to go to all of them. I'm just going to keep some options for you to get started. You can go and decide what other industries are there. And very quickly, I also want to do the company size. The company size. I'm thinking, should this be company size or number of employees per company? Yeah, let me put company size. Let me put company size, and I'll tell you why. Because for company size, I will then say it's not a string line. I'm always forgetting this. It's a single select, and for that, I'm going to say, for example, I'm going to say small business. And you'll see that even for the select, I don't want to keep spaces in between my options. We will say medium business. Okay, we'll say big business, large business. Okay, I'll have large business, which is like a corporate, and I'll include even something like government institution. I will put in here education or academic institution, and I'll have an option as well for something like your NGO, non-profit organization, which is like a charity. I'll treat them differently. If it's a non-profit, maybe I won't charge them as much. I will maybe do for like half the price I normally charge. So I think that's it. So for this specific one, we'll have the industry type. Let's pick manufacturing for this one, and company size. Let's say there was a medium-sized business. You see, there's a lot of information you're putting into your CRM, and we're just halfway there maybe. And I won't include everything in this video tutorial, by the way. I'm trying to overly simplify this for you. In reality, you'll have hundreds of columns in possibly, because people will put in address 1, address 2, phone number, line, code, everything, phone number, fax number, LinkedIn, Facebook. So you could have a lot of rows. You have to think about what's really relevant for your business. I've thought about this. Do I really need to know the address of my lead? Am I going to visit them on their doorstep? I'm more interested in their LinkedIn profile and maybe their Skype address, but I'm not interested in their physical address in my specific business. Your business, you might be, if you're delivering gas canisters, you want to know the address of your client. You might want to know the lead address and the company address. So you might have 3 different types of addresses you have to enter. And remember, if you enter an address, you can't just say address. You will say, like for example, this is a tip for the future. If you're going to do an address, you will thank me for it later. You can't say address and then you enter 123 Main Road, Sandton, 2191. You can't do this. This is bad. It's bad for database design, because when you want to search this address, you can't search there. So what you want to do when you enter an address, you will say something like address, you'll say, for example, address line. All right, and then here you will just enter main road like that. In fact, you will say address street, and then you'll say main road, and then you'll say address number, and then the address number will be 20. Then you'll say address town, right? And then the address town will be sent in. Then you'll say postal code, address postal code. And the address postal code maybe will be 21996 in Sandton. Then you will say address province, right? And the address province will be a single select. And you will have to enter all your provinces there. Gauteng, Mpumalanga. You see? So, Northwest. So this, can you see how long this can be? Just to enter an address, you have to enter these, all of them, because when you search this column later on and you want to know all your leads from Sandton, you're going to have to search by a town, and then you're going to filter by Sandton. But if you have it as one long address, you're not going to be able to do that. But in my specific case, I don't need client addresses. So I'm going to delete these fields. I was just showing you, if in your CRM, you need to have it, that's how you would do it. Okay, that's how you would do it. But in my CRM, I don't need that. So you might want to also have notes and meetings. If you have meetings with a client and notes with a client. So how would you do this? If you have notes and you have it, let's say as a, let's change this type of field to instead of a single line text, let's maybe enter it as a long text. So every time you have notes, are you going to come and enter the notes here? Because a lead relationship can span from months to maybe even a year or 2 years, depending on how big your organizations are and how long that you take to pursue leads. It might not be wise to do it like this. Because if you do it like this, are you going to be updating your notes every time? And then if you do that, how are you going to manage version control? Because your resources track, you have to, it's very important to be able to manage version control. If you put the notes here and then it changes, you have to update the notes. Are you going to be adding an extra paragraph at the end of the notes? And how will you know that somebody has edited the notes, right? So this is also a bad design for if you want to enter notes, because with a lead, you want to record what's happening. If every time you have a meeting with a lead, you want to come here and say, I had a meeting on such and such a date. This is what happened. It was a good meeting. So you're not going to do it like this. So I'm going to delete this field. You're going to instead have another table that you're going to call meeting. And I'm going to call this specifically lead meeting so that I can know what type of meeting I'm talking to here. And again, I'm going to remove all the rows that are already there, delete all the selected records, and I'm going to delete these as well. Delete that, and delete that. And then again here, I'm going to customize field type, and then I'm going to call this lead meeting ID, where I'm going to specify a meeting ID every time I create a meeting. Then I'm going to have the date of the meeting date. So let's say, when did the meeting take place? It happened on such and such a date. Perhaps we'll use ISO format. And when the meeting happened, it happened on such a date. I don't think it's important to specify the time. You can just specify the notes. So you can have meeting notes here. And you can have it as a long text like that. So then when it comes here, let's find an ID to use, right? A meeting ID. So let's say you have a meeting with now the client on day. So let's add in some records there. You had a meeting and the date was, you had a meeting on in the past. So let's put it as a meeting that has already happened. And then you're going to have some meeting notes. You can have initial introductory meeting. We had a good chat about the swords. Jamie is a little worried that we will not be able to keep up with the orders, because of the COVID, whatever. So let's say these are your meeting notes. So it's better to do it like this. And then when you come over there, okay, no, let's not create another table. Let's delete this table. So when you go over there to your lead, you can then say, for the meeting, I'm going to call this meeting notes. Actually, I'm going to give it the same name as what the table is. So I'm going to call this lead meeting. And instead of now having a long text, I'm going to have what is this table? Link to another record. And then I'm going to link to lead meeting. All right. And then I'm going to create a field. And then I can, meeting ID. Actually, don't do that. Don't skip this. Now, it reminds me of something. I also want to, so lead meeting ID, we need to have a meeting name. Meeting name, and it will be a single line text. That's fine. Where is it? Meeting name. Single line text. Yeah. And then let's put the meeting name over there. And then we'll call this initial introductory meeting. Awesome. Now we've got a meeting name, all of that. And if you come over here under leads, you have the lead meeting. So then over here, you can then just pick a record to connect it to. So that we've already added one meeting there. So you can connect that over there. Therefore, this is now connected to that meeting that you just created over there. So instead of now, this is now a good way to manage version control, because every time you have another meeting, you don't have to edit this meeting. You can just add more meetings. You see, it gives you an option to add more meetings. So you could have another meeting and record all your meetings in this place, and you go back to your lead and you just add all the meetings. So this will be like an array of meetings. Right, and then you can know that, okay, fine, for this lead I've had 10 meetings and they will all be listed here. And you can do the same thing for notes. So you can also create another table for notes, and then you can link the notes here. Therefore, you don't edit a note when you want to add a new note. You can just add a new note on top of that lead, and you'll have an array of notes that refer to that meeting, to that specific lead. Do you understand? So I'm not going to put the notes for now, because for my case, I don't think I need to put notes. If there's a meeting, if there's a note, I'll add it in the meeting. And let's see, what else do you want to add in here for the lead? The industry, the job title, the priority. Okay, so it's important to mention the priority. All right. The other thing that we haven't done over here is that, so let's do the priority first before we do the linking columns. So over here, we priority, and it's going to be a single select. And for the priorities, I'm going to say maybe I'll have it as like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so that I can like prioritize them in that sense, from least important to most important. So let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Create field. And then here we can then select from 1 to 5. Let's put this in the middle, say it's average priority. So later on, when you're analyzing your leads from your client side and you want to see, let's say you have 100 leads, you can organize them in order of priority, for example. And then you can say, oh, these are the most important ones. Let me focus on these ones first. These are the least important ones. You can even organize them in order of value, in order of budget. That's why we have all these fields now. Now, one of the most important ones that we mustn't forget when you have a lead for, management purposes, is that you need to always know who is the lead, who is the team person, who is the team member that's responsible for this lead. Every lead has to be connected to a person. It can't be a standalone lead, because somebody has to know they're the ones who need to follow up on a lead. So we're going to, for the team, we're going to again put in we're going to connect it to an existing field, link to another record, and we're going to connect it to the team record, and we're going to create it. And now for team, we're going to say who are the team, who's following up on this lead. And so when you want to add a record here that's connected to an existing record, you have the option to choose from the records you've already added. So let's say we'll let Ceci Lannister follow up on this, because she's they're sisters, sister and brothers, they're siblings, twins per se. So, maybe Jamie will listen to Cersei. We will give this lead to Cersei. But in real life, actually, what will happen is the person who's responsible for the lead will be the one who brings the lead and records it in the CRM. So I think this is enough. This is enough for our table now, okay? This is enough for our table. So let's see. We don't have a lot of time, but maybe let me add some more rows in here. So we have some rows for our table, maybe 2, 3 more rows. And then we can do the quick, how we pull this data now from the application side so that we can view it. Maybe we'll do that next week, because I think we've done a lot for this week. Yeah, I think we've done a lot for this week, because this is a video series. You can now go and think about, spend some time thinking about your specific organization. Think about what are all the other roles you might want to have. Do some research. What other CRMs have out there? A good way of doing good research about this is to actually go create. A lot of CRMs have these free accounts that they allow you, like trial period, 14-month trial period. Go and create an account with a 14-day trial period with an existing CRM. I've done that in my experience a lot, to see what they have, get all their tables, write them down, and then come and put them in here for your own CRM, because you're going to miss some things because of you don't have the experience the other CRMs have. Speak to your clients. What information do they want to see? A good way of figuring the rows or columns that you need inside of your database is to find out from the client what data, what analytics do they want to see. So your client will say, okay, I want to be able to see how long the lead has been in how long I've been working on the lead for, So I want to be able to divide the leads based on age of the lead in the system. So that means that you need to have a table here for date. But in this specific case, you don't even need to do a table for date, because every record will have a created date. So that will be sorted on that side. But they might say, I want to be able to see leads based on location. I want to know where the leads are from. We are a multi-global organization. We are operating in all the countries in Africa. So I want to know where in Africa. This is a valid thing. So if you didn't have that column, you won't be able to give them that data. So speak to your clients early on to find out what they want to see. So over here, I have phone number, I have name, description, town. I have the town where they are from. So I can only be able to organize it based on the town. That's not good. So over here, you want to add now province. You want to add province, or if they say they wanted to see it per country, you want to add country. And every time a client says, I want it to be organized by a certain data type or country, then it must be a single select, because you have to give it options. So for country, you're going to have to say South Africa, right? You're going to have to enter all the other countries, Angola. You have to enter all the countries that your client operates in, and then you have to then select them, because then that's the only way you'll be able to organize the data in that format. Because then later on, when you filter, you can then filter per country and say, I want only for this country. Then when you're plotting, when you do your plots and your analytics, you can then do it that way and represent the data in that format. So I'm going to leave it here and say that's your homework. If you really want to build a CRM, go home, think about all the data sets, speak to your clients. How do they want to see their data? Explore, do research with other open source CRMs that are out there. There's no open source CRM that's out there. The paid CRMs, create free accounts or pay for a 1 month account. Maybe some of them will let you pay month on month. Pay for a 1 month account, get into the CRM, see how their tables are organized, jot it down, take screenshots, come back, make sure that your data is well organized. Next week, when we continue, we will then work on our front end side, where we will build the front end that displays the data that we have on the back end that's been created. And then we'll also be able to build the ability to now create this data on the front end. So to add information to our table from the front end, so that we'll have a form on the front end where a new salesperson can enter the new lead, and that information gets displayed this side, and you can display the other way. And we'll be using our Airtable API and Flask Python to do that. So see you guys next week. It's going to be a long tutorial series. We're going to have a couple of videos throughout. And this, I think, is enough for our introductory video.